Hello, everyone. Warm welcome to another episode of the Timber Exchange webinar series. Today is a very important day because we're going to be discussing Scandinavian sawmilling, the challenges and outlook with none other than Mr. Erik Eliasson, Sales Director of the highly prestigious company Norra Timber. As usual, we want to know and hear where in the world you are watching from. So down below, write in the chat where in the world you are. It's always very interesting indeed. I'm looking at the attendees. We have a global audience. We have Stockholm. We have China. We have even India, Ireland, Germany, France, different parts of Sweden. Erik, you have a global audience. Very interesting indeed. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. We will start the webinar shortly, but first, a small announcement by today's organizer and host, us, Timber Exchange. We have become the premium and leading global lumber market tracker, more than 400 market signals from 400 market signals from around the world updated monthly, as well as 170 monthly timber prices. And of course, you can watch webinars with market leaders from all around the world 30 times per year. And some of the interesting updates that we have now is that we, for example, if you look in the bottom of that list, we track now also Russian monthly production and Russian monthly inventory, as well as inventory in Algeria and Morocco. And we recently, last week, we launched our iPhone app finally. So go on Apple App Store and download it. And we're very excited to be very soon launching a few new modules and tools for you. For those of you who contribute pricing to us, you'll soon get automated benchmarking reports of how your prices are compared to the market. We also know, and by request, we will be summarizing and publishing reports on all the webinars that we do. So you have a one-pager after each webinar, what was discussed. And we're also building a global dashboard so you can see average prices around the world. And last but not least, we're also soon finalizing and launching what we call community sentiment. You and others will be able to vote on specific graphs and indicators if you believe it will go up or down, and then see where the market believes each particular indicator will perform. Extremely important. And of course, the flagship of what we do is to track global timber prices in 26 markets. We publish reports on the 15th of every month, so in approximately 2 weeks' time is the new report. So if you want to participate, write to pricesurvey@timberexchange.com. And as thanks for everyone that contributes to the price survey, we will donate 1 week of meals for a family in need, and our goal is to reach 600 monthly participants so that we can distribute 1 million meals in 1 year. And this is your amazing work and support. These are real pictures from real donations, thanks to you. So please keep that coming. Donations in price data, and we donate for the food on your behalf as thanks. Now, let's get into it. Let's welcome to the stage Mr. Erik Eliasson, Sales Director of Norra Timber. Hello, Erik. How are you today?
Hello, Amir. I'm fine today, and I'm looking forward to have this speech. Just trying to, the first bit more complicated part of it is to share the screen. So I give it a try now. When we had the practice session, this worked pretty well. Now I don't have the correct view yet, but I will try here. Now what's happening? See what's happening. Now I have the correct view. Do you have it as audience?
No, now we cannot see the screen at all. Please try
Not at
to
all.
no, please try to reshare it. Because you started sharing at the same time as me. So
Okay.
now when I stop sharing, you can start to share. Now it's loading. And now we can see it.
Good, good. Then I must just change the view I have. Now I have the correct one. I hope you have the correct one.
Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. Here we go. Thank you, Amir, for inviting me in. My name is Erik Eliasson. I'm the sales director in a company called Norra Timber, located in northern part of Sweden. This speech has a headline, The Gloomy Situation for the Sawmilling Industry in Scandinavia. And I'm about to talk about these topics. I start with an introduction to the Scandinavian forestry, and to my company. Then after that, we will move ahead and talk about the driving forces behind the ongoing industrial transformation of the sawmilling industry, which is quite common now in Central Europe, in Canada, and also in my area in Scandinavia. Gonna also have a drill down and look at the Nordic sawmills situation, and in general also the forest industries and the present situation in the economic circle. Then we look at production, some figures, some sales trends for the sawmills in Finland and Sweden, and then we do some conclusions in a summary. And let's talk about the forest and forestry in Sweden and Finland. You can say that Sweden do have a land areal which is about 41 million hectares, and Finland has 34. The forest areal out of those 41 in Sweden is 28 or 68% of the surface, and in Finland is even more, it's 73% of the surface. So when you coming into Arlanda or Vanda Airport, you mostly, when you look out of the window in the plane, see green forests. And it's not an exaggeration that that's even more common if you go in the domestic areas in both Finland and Sweden. The forest growth in Sweden is 120 million cubes per year, and the harvesting level is at present 90. So we harvest as much as 75% of the forest, the growing forest. In Finland, the figure of the growth is 100 million cubes, and the harvesting level is about 70 million cubes. What's quite unique compared with North America and Canada is that we are doing two thinnings along the lifetime of a growing tree. And when we cut finally a tree, we replant it with two new trees. So that's the reason why we get more and more forests in this area, because we replant two for every tree we cut. And if you look at the ownership of the forests, so it's quite similar in between Sweden and Finland. Sweden do have 50% private forest owners, like those I represent with my company. And we do have a quarter or 25% company-owned forests, and the final quarter is publicly owned. In Finland, we have a similar situation, but we do even have more private-owned forests. We have like 60% there, and 40% just company-owned. If you look down in Sweden now, and we drill down into those private-owned forest lands, it consists of 310,000 individuals that owns a lot each. And it's, as I said before, about half of the forest land. The average property is just 34 hectares, so it's a quite small lot. 40% almost of the owners are women. and 68, almost 70% live in the same municipality as they have their forest. The rest is living in more urban areas. If you drill down and look at in the northern half of Sweden, where I'm located, we do have 75,000 private forest owners. It's just 44%, so it's a bit less up here. It's more company-owned forest up in the north. And the property is a bit bigger. It's 43 hectares, and about the same amount is owned by women's. And then there you have the role of a company like mine. What's unique with my company, these companies owned by just those private forest owners. So Norra Skog and Norra Timber is a company which is a cooperative owned by 27,000 private forest owners that has 1 share each in this company. And we do employ 670 people, and we have another 800 people employed or in action as contractors. And we represent with those 27,000 forest owners about 2.2 million hectares of forest land. My company, I do have 1/3 of the ownership in a big pulp mill, one of the biggest in Europe, Husum Pulp Mill. We are a co-owner with the Finns company Metsäliitto. Furthermore, we do have 3 sawmills, 3 further processing units, and a pole factory. And we represent about 40% of the privately owned forest in the northern half of Sweden. To have this operation up running, we use 110 harvesting crews, 300 days per year, all over the year, in order to cut and to forward those logs from the forests. And on top of that, we do have 150 trucks for transporting all these logs in different industries all over the surface. And we do have another 31 for the sawdust and for the wood chips and so on. Where are we located? Yeah, we are located and we cover the northern half of Sweden, which is a huge area. And you see those dots is where we do have our industries located. What's interesting with my kind of company is that we do have a very, very strong position in the private forestry. This was from the Swedish forest authorities statistics from 2022. We saw that we did have a market share 31.5%. The second had 25, 2022. And today we do have exactly the same market share, but the second has just 15. So in this highly competitive surrounding, we have been quite successful over the time. And therefore, we are also growing the company. So we have acquired a subsidiary that covers even further more south in the forest operations, a company called More Forest or Mera Skog in Swedish. And the reason for that is that the log trading nowadays has become more of an interregional or business. Back in time, it was more of a local business, but this for us creates new opportunities with different kind of logistic solutions arranged for forest operations all over, more or less over the northern half of Sweden, and also the central part of Sweden. Then we go into the next session, which is the forces behind the industrial transformation. And I used to start this discussion with a map. And this map showed how this industry was looking like when I started in the business in the early 1990s. Every single dot here is a sawmill. Those yellow ones are privately owned. Those green ones are forest owner association owned or cooperatives, and the blue ones are owned by listed companies. And at that time, it was 65 sawmills in the northern half of Sweden. And look at this map. This is how it looks today. 40 sawmills has been closed down, so 2/3 or 65% of the sawmills has shut down, and now the six biggest producers stand for 90% of the production. And the production in this region is 4.1 million cubic meters of sawn timber. And you can realize that this transformation has been painful. It has been a long journey, and it has caused a lot of suffering. But those mills, most of the mills that's now up and running, are highly efficient and owned by really long-term viewed owners. And I will say that this region in Sweden has taken the lead in terms of industrial transformation. This curve shows the production from 00 until today in Finland, the green line, in Sweden, the blue line, and in Germany, the red line. And you can see that since the COVID era ended, you can see a slight downturn in the production in Finland, and you can see a steeper one in Germany, and you can see a bit more flat one in Sweden. I would say that this one will this downhill slope, I think, will be steeper future-wise. Why is that? This is an example how the sawmill map looked like 2021 in Sweden. It's about 120 sawmills, and you can see that the amount of sawmills in central and southern part of Sweden is quite tight. But if you look in the north, you don't see it, but you see the bigger circles. And my assumption is that this transformation will go much faster in the central and the southern part of Sweden future-wise. Why is that? What's the reason for this? You have a battery of explanations. I will start with this. The European Union is now showing up a lot of environmental restrictions that affects the forestry. First, and very famous for most of you, are the deforestation regulation, which now is one that's postponed for a year until the end of 26/12/31 before it gets implemented, because the industry is not prepared and they postponed it. Then it will be effective, probably. Then you have the next one, which is called the Nature Restoration Regulation. It commits countries like Sweden to restore about 30% of the harmed ecosystems already 2030. And that it consists of a kind of laws that are binding targets in order to restore biodiversity and degraded ecosystems. Then you have something called taxonomy and closer to nature forest management. And closer to nature forest management is a concept proposed in the European Union, a forest strategy which aims to improve the conservation values and climate resilience. It's more that you're more selective when you are harvesting, for instance. Then you have the protection of rare species, laws that make the landowners have to take into consideration rare species before harvesting, something that's affect us heavily already today, especially in the north. Then finally, this one, hard to pronounce, but LULUCF, which is for Sweden, a plan that we have to increase the CO2 capturing with 4 million tons per year before 2030, compared with a historical reference period. That's a really tough goal that the union put on us, and they try to put it also on Finland. And according to analysis made by Johan Frey at the Danish bank, he said that this could alone lead to that 25% of the sawmilling industry in Sweden have to close down, and also a couple of pulp mills, which also represent about 25,000 jobs. So this is a really, really dark cloud hanging over the forestry all over Europe, but especially, I would say, in the northern half of Europe. Then we do have another category of challenges, similar with what we do have in British Columbia too. It's the indigenous population of the First Nations. You can see in the debate now, FSC certificates require consultations before harvesting in all sensitive areas. Sami people have right of veto before harvesting, and the consequence is approximately 10% of all planned harvest are appealed for different reasons in our operation area. Up to 30% are appealed in the more sensitive areas, normally close to the Norwegian border. And I assume that some of you have seen that it has been major protests led by an environmental activist in Sweden named Greta Thunberg, and she has been doing attacks towards some of the biggest Swedish forest companies where they are doing completely legal harvests up in the north, quite recent. And you've also seen that some bigger consumer companies has canceled the cooperation with also some Swedish big forest companies. And the reason is that it interferes with the FSC rules, which they are committed to have in their materials. Then the third major implication is of course, the Russian war against Ukraine, because this was definitely the ignition of this new tricky situation that has occurred. When European Union banned import of pulp logs from Russia and White Russia into the Union, for Finland, for instance, about 5 million cubes of pulp logs were stopped at the border, and the pulp mills that was used to buy these logs, they had to buy it domestically instead and fish in a smaller pond, literally. And then the competition really hard tightened up, because we had also a situation after the COVID where a lot of major investments were about to be implemented at this time, and so the consumption was the need for logs was even worsening. And then also with lack of pulp logs, big pulp mills with big investments had to also use bigger logs for boiling and make pulp, instead of just using the traditional pulp log dimension. So they start to compete with the sawmills in some way. So if we have a look, all those measures that I mentioned, they have been enabling the forest owners and the growing logs to be in a value-wise super circle, I would say. So they have been on the very top of this curve for a very long time. But now I think they are peaked, and they are now starting to go downhills in the economic circle. Meanwhile, you do have the forest products down low here together with the steel. Meanwhile, you do have the industrial metals as gold, copper, and that kind of high valued metals in a completely different world. But if we drill down, which you can see on the right curve, you can see that the saw logs and the pulp logs, as you saw, we call the forest raw materials, has been starting their downhill slope. You'd see the products from the forestry, the pulp in European Union, the packaging material is quite low here. You do have the pulp in China, which is on the really bottom line, as the sawn timber and the biofuel. So this is a situation which is really critical for the processing forest, all processing forest industry, because you don't have the connection between the products coming out from the forest industry and the raw material. And this situation is not durable over the long run, because if you see it like a rubber band, you can have it tensed, but you can't have it too tensed, because then the rubber band gets cracked. And I would say that we are now in a situation where the rubber band is too tensed, so it's starting definitely to crack. So let's see what's the effect of this unbalance between the raw material cost and the value of the outcome from the forest industry. As I mentioned, there is no correlation between the log cost and the revenues. And if you look at the right graph here, you can see from 2016 until 2023, the saw log price in percentage of the lumber price. And you can see that it's very balanced when it's about 50%, and then you have the COVID area where it was just 30%. But now in the southern part of Sweden especially, and also in the middle of Sweden, you do have log cost which can be up to 80-90% of the revenues. And in that kind of situation, it's like if you're a mountain climber, you're walking above the 8,000 meter height, trying to reach the top of Mount Everest. It's not breathable there. So this is the tough situation the mills are in now. And you can see on the left hand the pulp log price increases, and you can see the saw log price increase in a curve from, let's say, 400, 450, 500, and now it's a lot above 1,000. I would say it's 1,500 Swedish or $150 in the southern part of Sweden. And I don't think I'm exaggerate if I say that it's among the highest log cost on earth for the moment. And if we go back and analyze how does this affect the balance sheet and the accountings for the industry. Here I took a sample. This is the operating marginal quarterly 2025 for different stock listed public companies. Here you can see Stora Enso, they are third quarter losing money. Here you do have Holmen Wood losing a lot of money. Then you have the deviation in this category, SCA still earning money. They have some kind of efficiency that none other do have for the moment. You have Södra Wood losing money, Sätra Wood losing money, and we are even. So this is the fact, and the problem is if you look ahead for the fourth quarter, you can see that the loss level will increase furthermore in a quite serious way. And therefore, you can now see headlines like this in Swedish. This is negotiations. People had to go from Hasselfors. Moelven shuts down a sawmill. You can see Siljan shut down completely. You can see 9 out of 10 Swedish sawmills losing money, says Vida. Holmen firing people. This is just a sample of headlines you can see during this fall from the Swedish sawmilling industry. And I see that you do have the same headlines also in Finland. And then this kind of statistic comes out from the Swedish forest industry. This one came this morning, to be honest. And here you can see the different production paces in different areas also in Sweden. But as an average, you can still see that the production pace is quite normal. And you can see a decline in production in the south. And you can see a decline in central, but in the north, you can see an incline. What is that? I do think that in the north you have the situation that I explained in the beginning. You have less players in the game, and you have bigger players, and you do have also a bigger amount of company-owned forest that is easier to buy from when you do it internally. So that could keep up the production a bit. And then you have also a price gap between the north and the south, but on the other hand, you have almost pulp logs you saw in the north, so it's much tinier logs. But what is also happening now is that during a long period of time, we do have had a heavy harvest for spruce. We do have had beetle attacks. We do have had storms, and had a good demand for it. So therefore, we have turned over, as also happens now in Central Europe, to lack of spruce logs. And that means that the sawmills today, even in South, sow a lot more pine. And therefore, this graph shows the stock for pine wood and the stock for spruce. And as you can see, the spruce stock level is pretty normal. Meanwhile, the stock for pine wood or redwood is critically high, I would say. It's definitely far too high. It's 13% higher than same month last year, and increased with 5% in a month. And you can see that the total stock is 10% higher than same month last year, or previous months 3% higher. So the amount of pine that's been sown today is not so healthy from a market perspective. So the conclusion is that the wolf is coming because it's a drop of the timber prices, especially for the Swedish producers. When we do have a very strong krona against the US dollar, the krona is 50% stronger now compared with in the beginning of the year. We do have a drop for the residuals, for the wood chips, for the biofuel, bark, sawdust. And we do also, as a consequence, the wood chips drops because of the faltering pulp industry. So this situation will force the structural transformation to be ongoing. Let's have a look at let's have a drill down in the pulp industry too. This is an example from Sweden. You can see the same math as I showed with the sawmills. The pulp prices is a percentage of the pulp. And you can see that since 2016 until 2023, you have about 26-27%. Then you can see that it has been very steep up turn, the amount that the pulpwood cost, pulp log cost in percentage of the pulp. So now it's up from those 25-27 up to 40%. As a consequence, the operating marginal for the Nordic pulp mills is steeply decreasing now. So many of the pulp mills today isn't earning any money at all, which is a very critical and very sad story, especially when you consider the amount of money that's tied up in investments in that industry. They have to have a nice marginal, otherwise we do have a problem. Why is this situation occurring? It's a declining demand for or a reduced demand for pulp globally. New capacity increases supply and competition, and the pulp price drop during last year. And for Swedish producers, the krona is plus 50% against the US dollar. For instance, the production increase in the pulp industry in China has gone from 78 million tons 2020 until 90 million tons 2024, compared with the Swedish production, which is 13 million tons, and Finland's is 7 million tons. So it's a huge increase there. China is, by the way, dependent on imported pulp logs, buying from Asian countries like New Zealand and Malaysia and I don't know, but maybe some from Russia too. But this production increase doesn't correspond with demand increase in China. As you know, China is suffering now for bad times. That means that these kind of products also hits Europe, which even worsening the situation. And they also hit America, I suppose. So the competition is now very, very tough. And as a consequence, you can see this is the stock of pulp logs in Sweden. And you can see that it's definitely piling up, which is a bit also of a nasty situation. Here we have a summary of the global situation if we turn back the perspective to the sawn timber situation. If you start in Canada, you can see continuously decreasing supply from Canada because of bark beetle attacks, infestations. You have indigenous population and a lot of environmental consideration also in British Columbia especially. You have a long-term increasing demand in US, not for the moment, but in the long run, definitely. We do have that declining production, and in combination with all the tariffs, definitely a tricky situation at the border in between Canada and US. You have, on the other hand, a surplus of logs in the southern east part of US, and there you do have the most of the sawmill investments now in that area. And you have a neglected renovation and construction situation caused by high construction costs, high interest rates, and high insurance costs in US. But when the interest rates will go down, with Donald Trump works with quite a lot now, this will probably ramp up again. But this indicates also possibilities for increased trade flow from Europe to America because Canada won't be able to supply and fill up the gap. And if you look over here, the long-term demand of environmental friendly construction materials is increasing, definitely, but the production is declining. It's a stagnation in the production, especially as you know in the Central Europe, which has an even worsening situation compared with the southern part of Sweden in terms of beetle-harmed areas that's not usable. And storm attacks and things like that. So therefore, there will be a challenge. Then we do have another growth area, definitely, which is the MENA markets. Young population and a stable growth in the area implicates that it will be a lot of import needs over there. Finally, we have the second big surplus area of logs, which is Russia. And Russia is another story. And I'm not sure, but if it will be peace, it's likely that they come back to Europe, but we will see what's happening. In this context, we can see that Sweden, in combination with Finland, is the second biggest exporter on earth after Canada. But I'm not surprised if Canada will decline even furthermore, and we will be in an even level. Finally, we have some export trends that I'm going to comment. This left softwood lumber export figure shows the trend from 2010 until 2024, and you can see it is the big exporters in Europe. And what I want to show here is that you can see that from 2020 you see this violet part of the staples is the export from Germany, Sweden, Austria, and Finland to US. Is about, if I remember right, 2.5 million cubes per year. That was nothing before 2020. You can also see that it's an increase in the export out from Europe to Asia. So this is the new that the production won't be big enough in Europe to fill up the long-term demand in those areas, and in combination with the demand if the economic situation will improve in Europe. Finally, we do have a look at the export from Sweden, which is the biggest of the Scandinavian exporters. You can say by far the biggest market for us in Sweden is the UK market. It's about 2.5 million as an average from 2007 until today. You can see America ramped up 2020, and then it has been a bit slower since, but still quite big market. Then we have Egypt, our friend Egypt, take care of a lot of the off-grade in the pine lumber production. Then we have a lot of European countries. Then we have Japan, which is a bit of a stagnating market, but still an important market for us. Finally, how does it look in the near future? This one is a survey done towards the Swedish sawmillers monthly, and you can see the red staple here is the amount that believe that the prices is going to be reduced the coming 10 weeks, and this is the amount that believes in price increases in a near time. And the gray areas, even prices. As you can see, the sentiment is still quite negative. So I think we will struggle a bit for the first quarter, but then I think things will happen. And hopefully the construction activity will be significantly improved with a bit lower interest rates, especially if it's ignited in America. Then we do have opportunities, especially for the redwood, to use it even more for construction aim, for planing it, as we normally have done with the spruce. But now with the big production in Central Europe, in southern Sweden, central Sweden, which are specialized in production of construction wood, we'll see less unsorted fifth and sixth quality grading and more CLS C24 construction grading. And when the prices are a bit more normal, it's easy to realize why. It's a big price deviation between the traditional grading and the construction wood grading. So be prepared for that shift is about to happen. Okay, finally, the future. As you see, the sawmills face increased competition from pulp mills, which can buy and use logs in the smaller log classes in competition with the sawmills. Therefore, the sawmills have to focus on more value adding, not primary expanding business. For example, as we have been doing investment in CT scanner system to understand what's inside the log before we cut it. And we can do more specific customer adjustments in our production. New demand is also appearing for the biomass, which affects the competition as green gasoline, airplane gasoline, biopellet, district heating, and so on and so on. For the industry, therefore, main focus is securing the long-term log supply for stable production and predictability. Log costs has reached a new record and the highest level ever, and needs to be met by higher lumber prices and new higher long-term price in a new higher long-term price level. Lowering inflation and decreasing interest rates will help us up the general demand in order to improve our situation. And I know the industry is putting a lot of effort now on lobby activities in order to simplify for forest owners and prevent further limitations from EU and local governments. For Sweden specifically, the weak currency has helped us, but now we don't have any help at all from that. So we do have to be resilient and survive a couple of more rough years. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope you learned a bit more about the situation in the industry.
That was a really, really good presentation, Erik. I think that's for sure the best presentation we had all season, even better than mine. So super, super interesting. Very well done. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of questions. So to the audience, don't leave just yet. Down below, there is a button called Q&A where you can ask your questions to Mr. Erik Eliasson, and I will be moderating those questions. Of course, there will be some rules which I will go over soon. So start writing your questions and I'll be moderating. But first, a short announcement. I need to share the right screen. It's a tough life, you know, when you have two screens in front of you. It's a dangerous world. So, yes, first a short announcement. And here we have some new interesting data, and just very, very quickly. We know how much Russia produces. We know how much it exports on a monthly basis to key markets like China, Egypt, Uzbekistan, these sort of markets. So we estimate that right now, Russia's inventory is actually very, very low. And that's very good news for companies in Europe and in Scandinavia. We also started tracking the inventory level in Algeria and Morocco, but instead of doing an exact volume with a, X 100,000 cubic meters, we started tracking it by a rating system of 0 to 10. So now in Casablanca, Morocco, inventories are going down. In Algeria, for example, which is not in this presentation, inventories are on the way up from a very low level. And Erik, you showed one graph with the one barometer for the price outlook for Swedish sawmills. Well, this graph takes into account the global sentiment of buyers and sellers all around the world. And this graph, you read it from left to right, just like yours. And currently, almost 50% of respondents believe in increasing prices over the next 3 months. And the percentage believing in falling prices is falling from around 30% to around 20%, which is really good news. And one interesting thing which we see is also that Sweden is suddenly exporting much more to the Baltics, especially to Estonia, which is the blue line. I will ask you later, Erik, in a private phone call, how much of this volume is yours. It would be very interesting to know.
It's a significant volume, yeah.
And there is some really interesting news coming out of Sweden. Sweden's renovation activity is increasing 5 months straight, meaning more timber is being consumed within Sweden and Europe, and less is available offshore. And most importantly, we now track prices for We now track prices for 170 key timber products in 26 timber markets. So let's run some analytics on this. In the last report, which we published 2 weeks ago, 52% of products increased in price compared to the previous month. Very interesting. And the number of products which are up in the last report compared to since the beginning of the year are also 52%. In the last report, 60% of markets saw any type of increase. Could be for one product, but things are going in the right direction. As a buyer, you want falling prices, but you need to understand, if you pressurize your suppliers too much, they will not survive and you will lose your supplier. So actually, higher prices are good for the market. And we saw that the median change in the market was actually 2%. And last week, we interviewed Stark Group's head of lumber sourcing. And if we look at point number 3 and 4, he said that he believes in 2026, he believes that 2026 will be meaningfully better across Europe and that demand might rise as much as 5%. And also, he told us about a German stimulus package for the construction industry worth 800 billion euros, which should start in the second half of 2026. Really interesting news. So now we will start the Q&A session. Submit your questions. I'll be moderating them. But first, a few ground rules and housekeeping. This webinar is conducted in strict compliance with EU competition law. Discussions involving specific prices, future production plans, or individual company strategies are strictly prohibited. Participants are encouraged to share insights and reasoning behind local market trends and historic activity within the scope of these guidelines. We are allowed to discuss general market trends, historic production data, historic pricing data, inventory and stock levels, and economic and political influences. We are not allowed to discuss specific prices, future or planned production, individual company strategies, or real-time or forward-looking data. And of course, no coordination or collusion. And now let's open the floor and see the excellent questions that we have received. The first question is, Erik, why do you think you have more sawlog pine harvest? Why you think having more sawlog pine harvest is healthy?
I think it's better for us to have the previous balance where the southern Swedes normally had more spruce, and we in the north have more pine. I think it had been more better for us. Otherwise, the market floods with South Sweden, Central European pine, which is like another product. But they have to sell it and create some value out it, and it increases the competition.
Very, very interesting. The next question is, some markets within the MENA region are facing challenges for any price increase, especially Egypt, due to extremely high foreign currency exchange rate. How would sawmills overcome such a challenge?
I think we can't. I think the sad story is that we do suffer a lot with the present price situation, price level situation in Egypt too. So I don't have any easy answer for that.
The next question is, how is the log price different between South and North Sweden? And what is the current price levels for both spruce and pine logs? In general, not for Norra, of course, in general.
I would say that in the northern part of Sweden, the price net mill could be like $110, something like that, $115. But in the south, it could be $150, $160. But on the other hand, the logs are, let's say, 220, 240 liters down there, and here it's 160, so it's much tinier logs.
Very interesting. The next question is, thank you for the amazing information. Will will we see in the last month of November an increase of prices in Egypt of around $10 to $15, which looks like the opposite of the negative sentiment that sawmill has. So is it a temporary price increase, or how do you see that?
I think in the long run, you have to face a quite significant price increase because despite it's been quite rough times for the sawmills, a lot of export has been done there. There is not a big stock in Egypt today. The market is consuming all export to Egypt. So I think that when Europe and other parts of the world wakes up more, the prices will be even more higher.
And we have a truly global audience with us today, so it's worth clarifying a bit the relationship between Norra and Egypt and MENA overall. So for those of you who are not Swedish or from the MENA region, I can clarify by saying that Norra Timber has a very strong brand in the MENA region and is seen kind of as the champagne of timber or Louis Vuitton of timber in that region. So because of that, they charge a premium, and there are many that are interested to hear what Norra thinks about the MENA region. The next question is, how do you think the UK market is developing in 2026? Why is the sharp drop in Q3, Q4, and why the Swedish sawmills are selling CLS below margins?
If we take the CLS below margins, it's because it's so big surplus now in the construction segment. I think that I hope that the market in UK will recover during the second quarter next year because it's low stock levels, and if the interest rates and the circumstances, you can't wait too long before something starts to happen. So I think that the market there will recover.
So I'm not an expert on the UK. I know very little about the UK. When you mention surplus, do you mean on the import side or export side?
I mean that it has been a surplus pressure to export to UK from Baltic states, from Sweden, from Finland, from Germany, from many countries. And it has been definitely the buyer's market in the construction segment for a while. But I think that if you go back in time, last year, the prices ramped up with 20-30% the second quarter. I think it's likely to happen again.
Mhm. Wow. I read recently in the news that I believe it was National Timber Group that suddenly went bankrupt in the UK. And I
Yeah.
read also that Taylor Maxwell supposedly forced its suppliers by choosing and just saying, we're going to suddenly start paying you in 90 days, not 30 or 60. And these are the terms, take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Do you know why these happened and how it's affecting the markets?
It has been a really big reconstruction of the wood processing industry in UK after the pandemic. A lot of risk capital company acquired privately run planing mills and private run further processing industries alongside the whole country. And I think that then the times went a bit weaker, and it wasn't as fancy as they had expected. And therefore, with a lot of loans and a lot of and not so much equity in the balance sheets, the risk level when you and your resilience to survive bad times is not as good as it should be. I think there you have one explanation for it.
Very, very interesting. One more question. How is the tariff from the US on Swedish sawmills exporting to the US affecting sawmills?
I think it doesn't affect us that much because it's just 10%. But in combination with the strong Swedish krona and the 2x4 prices on the Chicago Stock Exchange, that's what affects us for real. So I think that there is not a fantasy business now exporting to US, but the deviation in price and the volatility is very, very big. So you have also there a situation where things can change very quick.
I can show one very interesting thing actually to add to this conversation. So a month ago or so, I interviewed Mr. Russ Taylor on the North American lumber market, and he said the following: that supply is clearly too high, dealer inventories are bloated, and at that time it was hard for mills to build an order file, and at that time, as a result, they had to sell below cost. However, that lumber prices must rise in the coming 3 to 6 months to bring imports back and to stop mill losses, and that more Canadian curtailments are expected. Very interesting insights indeed.
It's due to weak demand, too low construction activity.
Yes.
The cost for construction is too high. So people they do have as an average 3.5% interest rate. But if you buy a new home, you have the mortgage is tied up for 30 years, and you have to borrow for 7%. So no one do it. They keep their old previous house and they stay there until it's balanced between a new one and what they're paying today.
Yes. And on top of that, all the nice people building the homes are being deported.
Yeah, exactly.
And even if they have a passport or a green card, they might still be locked up for a few weeks. It's weird situation that we should not get into now. Let's see if we have any more questions. No, that is it. So we are closing right on the hour. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for attending today's webinar. We hope you found it interesting. And to Mr. Erik Eliasson, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your insights with us. It was a hell of a presentation, really. And thank you both, Mr. Erik, and to all the attendees for a great webinar season this year. I think we did 15 episodes, and we promise to keep delivering more content going forward. Thank you so much. Wish you all a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and higher timber prices ahead. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.